The most massive attack on the truth is happening in our country right now. And no, this is not a plea for the fact checkers to come back. But if you scroll the bowels of X and scroll the bowels of TikTok, you're going to see within the first 30 seconds some type of lie that is running rampant in our society. Let's talk about it.
Marathon, yeah, say that to me, yeah, say that to me, oh, marathon, you can say that to me, yeah, say that, you can say that to me, marathon, yeah, say.
Today's show was sponsored by NutriShop Parker here in Colorado, and I got my creatine here that I have ran dry. We have special guest B, the cat, running by the camera, trying to make me look unprofessional, but we will do this. And the next announcement I have for the viewers who are watching it live, I have the most massive... Actually, should we just leave the cat in focus? Yeah, we'll leave the cat in focus. I have the most massive pimple for the people who are watching this. I have the most massive pimple I've ever had in my life, so I'm going to try and turn my head sideways, so to hide it a little bit. Tell me I'm pretty in the comments, please. All right, let's get into it. I think people might think the Civil War was the time when the truth and the lie really converged in this country and we had the biggest fight ever. But I would argue that it wasn't even close. Because back in that society, there was still pockets of truth. There was segments of society where the truth still held dear. The truth had a place in society. But if you look around today, I think the lie has integrated itself into every single part of our society to a degree that everything can be questioned, and not in a positive way. The reason why questioning is such a powerful tool in the right way is because you should never take something at face value. Questioning it is the way that you learn. Questioning it is how you internalize, and you also help the teacher make sure that they are factual in their delivery. Questioning it is on purpose and intentional. But the type of questioning that's going on right now is nothing short of just confusing. We don't have to question 2 plus 2 anymore, because instead of questioning what 2 plus 2 produces, we're questioning, is there a 2? Is there a 2? And the merits of it being a 4. I think if that's the question that you're posing by itself is not bad, because we're talking about the concept of 2 plus 2. Questioning your reality, I think that's an existential question, crisis that men, women have gone over their entire lives and will always do so. That's one of those fundamental human questions. Does it exist? What does it mean? But the way that you really get to the theoretical part of dialogue and conversation is there has to be a baseline of foundation. There has to be a baseline of truth that you are running the lens through. Instead of warping the truth with your question, you're adding to truth with your concept of the question. Does that make sense? Am I explaining this correctly? So let's get into the first instance of the truth being warped right now. If you scroll X, which is what I just did for 30 seconds, the first lie that is running rampant is the Kendrick versus Drake beef. And I'm not rehashing this, I'm not bringing it back up, but I think it is something worth discussing that they're still talking about the Kendrick and Drake beef. Why is this thing lingering? I think the reason why it's lingering is not because it's about Drake and Kendrick. It's because there is an innate, visceral, internal reaction to the truth being attacked. There is a segment of people who are saying that Kendrick Lamar is a better artist than Drake. Let's dissect that a little bit. The first metric that you can use to measure who's better is, of course, sales. And I know that that's going to be refuted multiple times because there's a big engine behind people, and the type of engine behind you determines how much you sell. I understand that. So if we're not going to use sales to determine who's better, what do? Replay value, genuine likability, cultural impact. And I think in all metrics, Drake clears him, to be honest, because he's been the song of the summer. He has some type of song of the summer for the last 20 years straight. There hasn't been a year where Drake hasn't created the soundtrack for some type of imagery in your background if you are a mainstream music lover. You cannot escape Drake, even if you're not mainstream. On the radio, supermarkets, convenience stores, the malls, it's Team Drake all the time, which we can equate that to the machine that's behind him. But let's look a little deeper. Can we blame a machine for putting Drake in your face when they do it with every single artist that's signed to the machine? So if there's a machine that's pushing every artist who's signed, including Kendrick Lamar, then it should be some type of level playing ground. Of course, there's different types of money structures and deals being cut. But when you just put the art together, how do we measure if someone's better? So since there isn't an objective way to measure someone's better because it is subjective to a certain degree, then we have to look at other instances of what the truth is, right? Drake is worldwide, and it's not because they play his music in other places and they hear him. It's because he can go anywhere and sell out. During the Super Bowl, Drake was in Australia, selling out multiple arena shows, something that they said he couldn't do. I'm not on Team Drake, I'm not on Team Kendrick for the sake of this argument, because the real argument is the truth. There is a subsection of people who genuinely think Kendrick Lamar is better, with no metrics behind it, no thought behind it, no type of genuine argument, no type of genuine thought process, like I said, behind it. So why would they say that Kendrick Lamar is better? And it's just to disrupt the truth. The truth is under attack. And while we're talking about the Drake and the truth, let's talk about the metaphorical elephant in the room, that they're calling him a PDF. Of course, you can't say the actual word, but you know what I mean. That he is attracted to minors. And how many instances in our society have we seen a celebrity specifically get public outcry about some type of behavior that they are engaging in, and then a week, a month, 6 months later, they are arrested for that exact crime? I would say countless times. We've seen it with R. Kelly, we've seen it with Harvey Weinstein, we've seen it with a bunch of different people. So the fact that there's no investigations, the fact that the main underage person that they said he was talking to, Millie Bobby Brown, has come out and said that it was untrue. He did nothing flirtatious. Why, when you scroll on X, any type of post that has Drake referenced, the first comment says something about him being attracted to minors? Because the truth is under attack. The lie has always been, in mainstream media, more exciting than the truth. But when the lie becomes standard and the lie becomes the truth, then what are we really dealing with here? I think there's a lot of different ways that you can look at this. I think there's a very personal way that you can look at this situation. You can say, okay, if a lie is now the truth, that means that anybody who says anything against me, it will be believed and I'm done for. And I think that's been the main argument that people have been equating to the Me Too movement and saying whenever it comes down to accusations. That is the main thing that I would say the average white American male specifically, and then just males in general, have been echoing for the longest time, that you can't believe all women, because if women can have the ability to lie, some will. And if we all believe the lies just because they're said, then my life is just as easily taken away as a lie being told. But I think on top of that, there's an even deeper way to look at when the lie becomes the truth. What does that really mean? It means that when we're questioning things, we have nothing to reference. It means that we have no direction. Think about the truth as stability, as the foundation to a house, as the wheels to a car, as the train tracks that a train is on. Without the truth, there is no direction. Maybe we can move. Maybe a car can still do something on the axles or whatever gets the car moving, but it won't go far. Maybe it can move, but it will go in circles to certain degrees, depending on what instrument the truth is playing in this metaphor. And if we're going to be very genuine about this, I don't think that there's anyone actually who thinks that we are really progressing as a society. We use the word progress very often and very loosely whenever we're talking about primarily liberal agendas. And I think that the word progress has lost its meaning, because what does it mean? There's been a couple different instances of progress having a strict, strong meaning in society. The right to life, the right to love, the right to personhood. If we are referencing these rights, and that is what progress is, then let's play a little thought game. The right to life. Would you say, in your opinion, that the majority of times people say the right to life, it's referring to the Declaration of Independence, pursuit, happiness, life, liberty, all this situation? Yeah? But of course, we can't use the Declaration of Independence, because for me as a black man, if that was my end all be all for what it meant to have a right to life, I'm also signing on to the fact that I'm not a full human being. So we can't do that. So what should we reference? I would say that we should reference the Bill of Rights that actually has legal basis in a court of law and an established line of personhood for everybody who's around. And the thing about the Bill of Rights is that it has the foundation of the truth in it. It has the foundation of everything that has progressed us as a society, as Americans, the entire time. The Bill of Rights protects women, men, children, anybody who is alive. Of course, if we really want to dissect it, there's a lot of different arguments about, abortions and when a person becomes a person. And I think that is definitely a discussion worth having, an important one that I think that we do give it its due diligence of importance whenever we do discuss it. If we're using the Bill of Rights to determine the right of life, we have to also understand that there has to be a foundation of truth. What is life? What is the pursuit of liberty? What is freedom? What is all these things? And to even ask the question means you have to acknowledge some type of truth as the foundation. There has to be a foundation. So if a lie is the truth, then how could we ever establish any true boundaries? The picture I'm trying to paint is that the immense, intense danger of letting the truth run rampant is causing the true degradation of society. If nothing's true, then there is nothing. Truth is a form of everything. And this might be more of like a conceptual opinion. I have no problem if you disagree with this point that I'm making, but I will make the point anyway. The truth is math. The truth is binary. The truth is fact fiction. The truth is this is a desk. That is the truth. If we do not call that the truth, if we have no line of what the truth is, then what are we really dealing with? That is why conservatives are fighting pronouns being used. That is why the right is seemingly imposing on the rights of trans people or the request of people to use pronouns. If we start to bend the lines of truth and blend fact versus fiction, if we have an established truth in this country, or as humans, we have an established truth, men, women, dogs, cats, man can't be a woman, whatever it is, then where do we really draw the line? And I think that the left, although well-intended when it comes to the right to life, the right to love, the right to personhood and such, I think that there's a very clear lack of forethought and outward thinking when it comes to making certain points. It is not a small, minute request that I call you a he when you're a she. Not that I'm trying to offend, and not that I don't want you to feel comfortable in your own skin, because, oh my gosh, like personally, I have body dysmorphia. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I look like I'm 110 pounds. Other times I look in the mirror and I feel like I look 250 pounds. Like, that's maybe nowhere close to how it feels, but in terms of not being comfortable in my skin, I can empathize to a certain degree. So that's not the position I would ever come from. But when it comes to changing up language, and now I have to call you this, when our truths that have been established is about biology and about what it really means. I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about just sex, biological sex. Then we're playing a dangerous game about who is now in charge of drawing the lines of what the truth is. And eventually there will be no truth, which leads me to the Drake point. There's already not a strict dialogue when it comes to the truth. There's already not a true, genuine line in the ground of what you can call somebody now. We used to not be able to call somebody a PDF. That was like the worst thing you could be called, and now it's a joke over somebody who isn't even one, at least not yet, right? Has not been accused, has not been on trial, has not been convicted, right? So he is not. Even if he's accused, he's not, because I don't play that game. It is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, period, point blank, and that is a truth that we need to bring back. So as we're talking about the truth and the danger in language and lackadaisical talk and how you can accuse people of things without any true basis, that brings me to the next point, which is Candace Owens fighting the battle with the Daily Wire that she's been fighting for exactly a year and a day. So they say that she weaponized the phrase, Christ is king, to attack Jews. And I think that that is very dangerous, very dangerous. And I think the fact that there's a little gray area when people look at the story to be like, well, maybe she did. We don't go with maybes. when we're talking about anti-Semitism, right? That word, if you call somebody anti-Semite, that still has a lot of power in this country, a lot of negative power, meaning that if you are now labeled an anti-Semite, you will lose your job, period, point blank. You will lose opportunities. You will lose endorsements. Of course, we can look at what Kanye West is doing on Twitter right now and say maybe that's not as true as we think it is because of all his, seemingly anti-Semitic, and I'm only saying seemingly, I'm not trying to offend anybody, alleged anti-Semitic comments, because, I'm new to this podcast and stuff. I don't want to be sued or subpoenaed or anything. So everything's alleged, So anti-Semitic comments that we're dealing with, and he still has a lot of money and a lot of opportunities, and he's probably going to put out his album Bully here in a little bit, and I think it's going to be reviewed by reputable people in the industry, and he's going to be able to go on tour and things like that. But for the average people, because he's a billionaire, he has a lot of resources, and he's done a well enough job to establish himself with his own team around him to make sure that he is not in jeopardy of losing something. And I think that he must have spent the last few years solidifying his team so this would never happen to him again, just like he lost everything. I think it was around the 2020 period when he started saying some stuff and Adidas dropped him and things like that. So I think he's testing it right now on Twitter to see if his system is as strong as he thinks it is. Whole different subject, I get it. But the Candace Owens, Jesus is King, I think Jeremy Boring and the people of Daily Wire played too much of a dangerous game, because although in the media it makes you feel like being a Christian is not very trendy. People are not doing it. People are walking away from the faith. It's not a great time to be Christian. No one's really professing their faith in huge displays. Instead, we get a lot of VMA devil performances and Lady Gaga doing all her demonry. In reality, there's a lot of Christians. In reality, a lot of businessmen are Christians. In reality, a lot of successful people with influence and power are Christians. So if you take a stance against a very popular person like Candace Owens, and you say that she's weaponizing something to create an anti-Semitic comment, then what you're really doing is tossing a coin in the air and hoping it lands on heads. Because the reverse, which is what's happening right now, is everybody turns against you. Because you're talking about making the sentence Jesus is King a weaponary phrase, which at the core of that means that being a Christian is something that attacks someone else's religion. And that's just not going to fly in the world of truth. It's not going to fly in a country that says, in God we trust. It's not going to fly having our president be an outward Christian. In our society, you cannot do that. So if you're not caught up on what's happening with the Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring is now the ex-CEO of Daily Wire. And you can say there's no correlation. Obviously, Candace Owens has not worked there for a year, but me, and this is my position, and if you think similarly to me, you're going to know what I mean, is that everything has a cause and reaction. I think everything is connected. I think the way that you do this impacts the way that you get that and what happens to you over there. That's why integrity is such a big deal. That's why speaking the truth is integral. It's necessary. It is essential, because everything impacts everything. There's a tumble effect when you lie. Have you ever been in the room with someone you knew was lying? Didn't it make you feel strange? No one likes the lies. Even if you feel like you have to tell one to spare someone's feelings, it never sits well unless you make it your job to keep lying, and then it numbs the feeling. The truth has less bearing inside of you, but at the end of the day, you always still kind of feel it. Your body doesn't want to lie. Your mind doesn't want to lie. Your spirit doesn't want to lie, whether you believe it or not. Lies have no real place in a world with a foundation of the truth, which is why it's jumping at every opportunity to question the truth. It jumps at the opportunity to invalidate any type of truth. There is the biggest attack on the truth happening in this country that we have ever had before. And the truth has no safe place in any type of sector. But maybe there's a silver lining. Maybe it's getting better. What the right side would say is that the fact that the country elected Trump means that the truth is now rearing its beautiful head again. Whether you're a Trump fan or not, I think that this is worth a discussion if you can have the discussion. If you're somebody who doesn't like Trump, I would present this point to you. Do you think that you're the type of person who lets their emotions lead them? I'm not saying it's good or bad yet, but do you think that you're the type of person who lets your emotions lead you? Do you feel strongly about certain things or about everything? Do you think that it impacts the clarity of your mind? Do you ever get in an argument with your significant other and they say something that pisses you off or saddens you and you no longer can hear them anymore? You just want them out of your face. Now think about that in a political setting. Think about that in a school setting. Think about how teachers would react to your child if your child angered them. Think about how your Colorado governor would react if a bill comes on his desk and he is emotional about it and doesn't want to read it. There's a billion different examples of how you can really start to paint the picture of, do I really like where emotions play a role in my life, in society? And then you start to look at another aspect of what emotions really are. The picture is when you are dealing with deep, intense emotions, the logical part of your brain does not work as strongly. So when we're dealing with a Trump situation, when we're dealing with the Elon Musk situation, and you have people on X talking about and saying it with their entire chest that Elon Musk is not smart, you have people whose entire videos for the whole first 3 months of this year have been centered around the fact that Trump should not be elected because he's a bad businessman, because he has multiple bankruptcies. Then you start to understand that, maybe we're not dealing with people who should be in any type of position to make decisions, because although Trump has multiple bankruptcies, let's look at the truth about what a bankruptcy is. How can a bankruptcy be used? Can you use it to increase your business and make better business moves? Can you use and leverage a bankruptcy to make money? Have you ever done it? And maybe it's because you don't know that you can use it. Then we have to look at the true truth, right? The true truth, right? That Trump is a billionaire with multiple successful businesses, more businesses than bankruptcies, more money than he lost during the bankruptcies. And we're talking about the current time. So how could we ever fix our lips to say that he's not a good businessman when, if we're going to use I would say the average definition of a bankruptcy is that you are broke. Your company failed, you're toast. Okay, then let's look at that from your point of view. Let's say you have 4 businesses and all 4 of them bankruptcies. You're broke. But then somehow you build up from scratch and now you have billions of dollars. Wouldn't that make you the best businessman ever because you came from nothing 4 times? Okay, let's look at Elon Musk. There's people on X saying he's not smart. People on X saying he made a horrible decision buying Twitter. He's going to go bankrupt. He's not a good advisor. But you have to understand he made PayPal. You have to understand that he runs SpaceX and other companies. He runs Tesla. He just conducted a space sci-fi mission and brought astronauts who were stuck in space for 8 or 9 months home today. Or if you're listening to this tomorrow when I put it up, yesterday. So I think that we have to start finding some type of foundation, common ground on what the truth is. And I think the only way that we're ever going to agree is if we look back. And it could be the same age-old saying is that if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I hope the fact that liberals don't know history and some of the right don't know history, that we're doomed to repeat it. Because I want a foundation of the truth again. I want objective. If he's the richest dude on earth, I think he would be a great financial advisor to run a Doge team. That's just me. If our country is trillions of dollars in debt and we have one of the most successful businessmen of all time as president, I think that that's a good thing to happen. If you think he's not running it for other policies, that's a whole different conversation. But from the financial aspect, we cannot say he's a bad businessman. We can't say Elon Musk is not smart. Can't do it. Because now we're talking about a bold-faced lie. We're not talking about a bending of the truth. We're talking about a bold-faced lie. And the fact that there's millions of people who are echoing these talking points is so dangerous. So if I've left you with anything, it's that hopefully the intense attack on the truth that we have going on right now, the silver lining is that we have a president who is fighting against the lies that he has to encounter every single day. And I was trying to make this not a political situation, but when we're aligning the lie with the left and the truth with the right, in terms of just the concepts that I'm putting in front of you, I'm not saying that everything he does is the truth and everything they do is a lie. I'm not saying that. Just the specific talking points that I'm bringing up during this conversation, I would argue with my full chest that these are outwardly right, outwardly wrong situations. So like I said, if I left you with anything, let's get back to the truth.
Marathon, yeah, say that to me, yeah, say that. Yeah, say that to me, oh marathon. You can say that to me, yeah, say that. You can say that to me, marathon.